You know the sound. A key sliding into a lock. A door opening. A wall between you and the street. You step inside, close the door behind you, and the outside world becomes someone else's problem. The cold stays outside. The rain stays outside. Strangers stay outside. You barely think about it because modern home is so familiar that it feels almost natural. A room. A roof. A private space. A place where your body can stop watching. But for most of human history, there were no apartment doors. No locks. No concrete walls. No heating system humming in the background. No glass window holding back the wind. And during the Ice Age, in some parts of the world, even the landscape itself seemed unwilling to offer shelter. Imagine the open steppe. The ground hard with cold. Wind moving over grass and frozen soil. Wood scarce in some places. Darkness arriving without mercy. Predators somewhere beyond the firelight. Children needing warmth. Tools needing repair. Meat needing processing. Bodies needing sleep. And around you, not brick, not timber, not insulation. Bones. Huge bones. Skulls. Tusks. Jaws. Ribs. The remains of animals so massive they looked almost like pieces of the earth itself. So the question is not simply, why did Ice Age humans build with mammoth bones? The real question is deeper. How did humans build a place to survive when the world itself offered almost no protection? The answer changes the meaning of home. Because home was not always a property. It was not always a private comfort zone. It was not always a locked box full of personal things. For Ice Age humans, home may have begun as a boundary made by many hands. A circle against the wind. A memory of where fire had burned before. A shared place where fear could be lowered just enough for sleep, food, work, and children to continue. Most people imagine prehistoric shelter as simple. A cave. A few branches. A skin thrown over a frame. Something rough, temporary, barely smarter than an animal den. And when they hear about mammoth bone structures, the first reaction is often disbelief. It sounds like fantasy, like some strange palace of bones from a myth. But archaeology tells a different story. Across parts of Upper Paleolithic Eastern Europe, researchers have found circular structures made from mammoth bones. Their functions are still debated. Some may have been dwellings. Some may have been storage areas, gathering places, symbolic structures, or places used for special activities. We should not pretend every circle of bones was definitely a house. But the evidence shows something powerful. Ice Age humans were not just hiding from nature. They were rearranging death into architecture. At Kostenki 11, on the Russian plain near the Don River, archaeologists studied a large circular mammoth bone structure dating to roughly 25,000 years ago. The structure was enormous, about 12.5 meters across, built from the remains of many mammoths. Reports describe bones from at least 60 animals. Think about that for a moment. Not one carcass, not a few scattered bones. A concentration of skulls, jaws, tusks, and long bones brought together into a deliberate circular form. This was not something a person did alone on a cold afternoon. It required time, labor, planning, knowledge of weight, shape, placement, and probably repeated use of a landscape where humans knew where bones, fuel, water, and animals could be found. Picture the scene. A small group standing in a freezing environment, not with blueprints, not with metal tools, not with carts or cranes, but with bodies, hands, memory, and coordination. Someone knows where the heavy skulls should go. Someone understands which bones can form a boundary. Someone carries fuel. Someone tends the fire. Someone watches the children. Someone breaks stone nearby. A wall does not begin as a wall. It begins as agreement. That is the first strange truth. Shelter is not only material. Shelter is cooperation made visible. At Kostenki 11, the research found charcoal, burnt bone, and tiny stoneworking debris inside the mammoth bone circle. That detail matters. It suggests human activity happened in or around the structure. Fire was present. Stone tools were being made or repaired. People were doing the small, necessary work of staying alive. But here is where the story becomes more interesting. A structure this large may have been difficult to roof completely. Some researchers have questioned whether it was a dwelling in the simple modern sense. It may not have been a family house with a neat cover and a single purpose. It may have been something more complex. A place for storage, a windbreak, a meeting space, a monument, a place where people gathered during a brutal climatic period, a place where practical survival and symbolic meaning overlapped. And that uncertainty does not weaken the story. It deepens it, because modern people often want one label: house, temple, workshop, storage, camp. But ancient life may not have separated these things so cleanly. In a world where survival depended on the group, a structure could hold many meanings at once. A place to work, a place to burn fuel, a place to remember animals, a place to mark territory, a place to gather bodies into one protected circle. The deeper you look, the less primitive it becomes. Now place yourself inside that circle. The air is cold enough to make your fingers stiff. Smoke moves low and slow. Bone surfaces catch the firelight. Outside the circle, the steppe is wide and dark. Inside, there is heat, sound, smell, breath, work. Someone chips stone, striking flint until a small, sharp edge falls away. Someone breaks bone for fuel or fat. Someone repairs hide. Someone speaks softly. Someone remembers where the herd moved last season. Nothing here is random. The circle is a kind of memory device. It tells the group, we have been here before. We know this place. We know what can be done with what the world leaves behind. That is architecture before architecture becomes property. Not a building owned by one person. A survival pattern held by a group. And Kostenki was not alone. At Mezhyrich, in what is now Ukraine, mammoth bone dwellings were discovered during excavations in the 20th century. Later research and revised radiocarbon work have continued to refine the chronology. Recent reporting on the new analysis places the largest structure around 18,000 years ago, just after the harshest phase of the last glacial maximum. There, researchers describe structures made with mammoth skulls, large bones and tusks, possibly combined with wooden frames, hides, or bark. The bones may have helped form foundations, weight coverings, and protect against wind. Imagine that kind of intelligence. Not the intelligence of a modern architect drawing lines on a screen. The intelligence of touch, weight, wind, cold. A skull is not just a skull. It is mass. It is shape. It is resistance. A tusk is not just a trophy. It can hold, brace, weigh, mark, curve, strengthen. A hide is not just an animal skin. It is a membrane between breath and weather. This is not primitive man using whatever was lying around. This is material science without written language. At Mezhyrich, evidence points to temporary shelter and activity areas rather than a permanent town in the modern sense. Some interpretations suggest small groups may have lived or worked within these structures, processing skins, making stone tools, butchering animals, and carrying out the daily labor that made survival possible. Temporary does not mean simple. A hospital tent is temporary. A hunting camp is temporary. A spacecraft module is temporary. Temporary structures can still be sophisticated because the problem is not permanence. The problem is whether the body can survive the night. And in the Ice Age, one night could be enough to decide everything. This is where mammoth bone architecture becomes more than an archaeological curiosity. It reveals a human mechanism that is still inside you. Your nervous system needs boundaries, not just emotionally, physically. A predictable, protected space changes the body. It lowers vigilance. It allows sleep. It lets children rest. It lets hands perform delicate work. It lets people share food without constantly scanning the horizon. It lets the brain move from immediate fear into memory, planning, repair, and story. Without shelter, the body stays open to the world. Every sound may matter. Every shift of wind matters. Every shadow matters. But inside a recognized space, something changes. The fire has a center. The group has a shape. The night has an edge. Home is a nervous system technology. You feel this even now. You close your door and your body understands before your mind does. Your shoulders drop. Your breathing changes. You put things down. You remove shoes. You become less armored. That reaction is ancient. Your brain does not only want comfort. It wants a place where danger becomes predictable. For Ice Age humans, a shelter made of mammoth bones may have done what your walls do now, but with far more effort and far more meaning. It did not remove danger completely. Nothing did. But it drew a line. Inside this line, we work. Inside this line, we feed children. Inside this line, we sleep. Inside this line, the outside world does not get everything. And because these structures required cooperation, they also created another kind of protection: belonging. A lone human can find cover. A group builds home. That difference matters. To build something from mammoth bones, people had to share labor. They had to trust each other enough to coordinate. They had to remember where materials were, return to places, divide tasks, and hold a plan in common. The structure was physical, but the deeper architecture was social. A wall made of bone begins in the mind of a group. And maybe that is why these sites feel so haunting. They are made from animals that once moved through the same cold world. Massive living bodies became structural remains. Death became a boundary for life. The bones of mammoths became the edge of human sleep. There is something dark in that. But there is also something deeply human. Ancient people did not stand outside nature looking down on it. They were inside it, dependent on it, threatened by it, fed by it, covered by it, frightened by it. They took what the world gave, even when what it gave was bone, and they turned it into a place where children could survive another night. Modern life teaches us to think of home as ownership. A mortgage, a lease, a key, a door number, a private space where we can escape other people. But the older meaning may have been almost the opposite. Home was not escape from the group. Home was the group made safe. A circle of people, a circle of fire, a circle of bones. A remembered place in a landscape too large for one body to face alone. That is the emotional core of this story. The mammoth bone structures were not impressive because ancient humans lacked proper houses. They were impressive because they show how early humans could turn almost anything into human space. Not by conquering the world, but by reading it. By noticing what could hold weight, what could block wind, what could burn, what could be carried, what could be reused, what could bring people back to the same place. The obvious lesson is that Ice Age humans were clever enough to build shelters without modern materials. But that is not the deepest lesson. The deeper truth is that they were building one of the oldest forms of home. Not a private comfort zone. A shared survival boundary made from death, fire, memory, and cooperation. The technology was not just the bones. It was the relationship between the bones and the people. The structure and the fire. The cold and the group. The animal remains and the human imagination. It was not luck. It was not instinct. It was architecture. And it was also something more intimate than architecture. It was the human refusal to remain exposed. That refusal still lives in you. You feel it when a storm hits your window, and you are grateful for glass. You feel it when you come home exhausted and close the door. You feel it when a room feels safe, or when it does not. You feel it when you enter a place where people know you, where your body does not have to explain itself. Modern walls protect us from cold, violence, weather, and disease in ways ancient humans could not imagine. We should not romanticize the Ice Age. Ancient life was dangerous. Children died. Injuries could become fatal. Hunger was real. Cold was not aesthetic. It was a force. Modern shelter is a miracle, but every miracle has a shadow. Our walls became stronger, but our circles became thinner. We gained privacy, comfort, insulation, locks, heating, and safe sleep. But many people now live behind doors that protect the body while leaving the nervous system strangely alone. We have apartments full of things and fewer shared fires. We have private rooms and public loneliness. We have locks that keep danger out, but sometimes they keep belonging out too. That is why the mammoth bone circle still matters. It reminds us that home was never just a structure. It was a condition created between people, a place where fear could be lowered because others were near, a place where the outside world was held back, not by one lock, but by shared attention. Go back to your door. The next time your key turns, listen to the sound. That small click feels modern. Metal inside metal, a private mechanism. A promise that no one enters unless you allow it. But underneath that sound is something much older. A ring of mammoth bones on a frozen plain, a fire burning low, a child asleep beneath hides, hands blackened by smoke, stone flakes on the ground, voices inside a circle, while the wind moves outside. Your apartment wall is not as separate from that world as it seems. Every wall is a descendant of an ancient boundary. Every home carries the memory of a night when the outside was too cold, too dark, too dangerous. And humans decided to make an inside. The materials changed. Bone became brick. Hide became glass. Fire became electricity. The circle became a room. But the need did not change. We are still the animal that cannot sleep fully exposed. Still the animal that gathers around warmth. Still the animal that needs a line between danger and breath. Your ancestors did not just survive the Ice Age. They made places where survival could become human. And every time your door closes behind you, some ancient part of your body still hears the same promise. For one more night, the outside stays outside.